At least 4 million people have attempted to enter the European Union illegally in the past 10 years, and these are conservative estimates. Some say these migratory flows are deliberately allowed to replace the local population with immigrants, while others believe it is a normal phenomenon that has always existed throughout history. What is certain is that the European Union has never conducted a study revealing the main countries of origin. But here at Amazing Europe, we've done a colossal job. We've gathered and compared all the material provided by Frontex to uncover the truth about the 10 countries sending illegal immigrants to the European Union. We kindly ask you to like this video so that YouTube can suggest it to as many people as possible. Welcome to the Amazing Europe channel. Number 10. Mali. Mali is currently the epicenter of one of the largest illegal migratory flows to Europe. The crisis has deep roots. In 2012, Mali plunged into instability with the Tuareg and jihadist rebellion, leading to widespread violence and civilian massacres. This event led France to launch the so-called Operation Barkhane, a military operation against jihadist groups in the Sahel region of Africa, which started in 2014 and ended in 2022. The operation was considered a failure due to the inability of French forces to suppress the jihadists and the increasing political instability in the region. Anti-French protests gained ground in Mali and the Sahel, with some accusing France of supporting corrupt elites and perpetuating a neo-colonial system through Francafrique. This term is used to describe the special and often neo-colonial relationship established between France and its former colonies in sub-Saharan Africa. This, along with other factors, led to a new coup in 2020. This event further exacerbated tensions in Mali against France, complicating the situation in the country and making it more difficult for the international community to address the root causes of migration. The impact is felt in Europe, particularly in Spain. The Canary Islands saw a 154% increase in migrant arrivals in 2024, causing a humanitarian crisis and straining local resources. The Canary route, favored by the Tunisian blockade and the closure of other paths, is now one of the main entry points. According to Frontex data, there have been at least 77,000 irregular crossings from Mali to the European Union in the past 10 years, but these are significantly conservative estimates. Number 9. Guinea. Illegal migratory flows from Guinea to Europe represent one of the most dramatic and complex phenomena of recent years. Guinea, with a population of about 12.8 million, is rich in natural resources such as bauxite, gold, and diamonds but is devastated by chronic poverty. In 2022, it ranked 181st on the United Nations Human Development Index, just above Afghanistan. This entrenched poverty drives thousands of Guineans to seek a dignified future elsewhere, which their country cannot offer. In 2023, Guinean citizens were the top nationality among migrants arriving in Italy by sea, with more than 18,000 landings. This impressive figure is just the tip of the iceberg of a humanitarian crisis fueled by decades of political instability and violent repression. Since independence, the country has been plagued by authoritarian regimes unable to ensure development and security. Protests are often crushed with bloodshed, creating a climate of permanent insecurity that drives entire families to flee. On paper, the European Union has declared its intention to adopt a strict approach against illegal migration from Guinea and Africa in general. It has delegated migration management by making agreements with third countries such as Guinea. Through the Emergency Trust Fund for Africa, the EU has financed stricter border controls and voluntary return programs. However, these policies have been criticized for human rights violations and for shifting the responsibility of managing a deeply rooted crisis onto African nations. Others have denounced the ineffectiveness of these policies, which allegedly fail to prevent many Africans from reaching Europe illegally. According to Frontex data, there have been at least 88,000 irregular crossings from Guinea to the European Union in the past 10 years, but these are significantly conservative estimates. Number 8. Tunisia. Illegal migratory flows from Tunisia to Europe represent a complex humanitarian crisis fueled by economic, political, and social causes. The Arab Spring of 2011 sparked hopes for change with the fall of Zine al Abidine Ben Ali's regime, but the subsequent democratic transition proved fragile and disillusioning. In recent years, the country's instability has worsened, culminating in the rise to power of Kais Saied in 2019. Saied has centralized control, weakened democratic institutions, and repressed opposition, while his economic policies have exacerbated an already deep crisis. Youth unemployment, reaching 37%, combined with rising living costs and shortages of essential goods, has driven many Tunisians to seek an escape route. From 2014 to 2024, at least 98,000 Tunisians entered the European Union illegally via the central Mediterranean route. In 2023 alone, over 18,000 reached Italy, a significant increase from 2,000 in 2019. Approximately 40% of these migrants are between 15 and 29 years old, representing a dramatic loss of human capital for the country. Additionally, Tunisians are the most educated nation in Africa, and many qualified young people see little prospect for improving their situation in Tunisia, pushing them to seek better opportunities abroad. Despite its strategic position and potential, Tunisia has failed to provide development prospects for its citizens. The European Union has made agreements with the Tunisian government to limit migratory flows, but without addressing the root causes of this emergency. Many also claim that these agreements are actually ineffective. Number 7. Nigeria. Illegal migratory flows from sub-Saharan Africa to Europe reflect complex interconnections between economic crises, inequalities, and political instability. Nigeria, the most populous country on the continent, is a significant example. Between 2014 and 2024, most of the 102,000 irregular Nigerian migrants in the European Union took the dangerous central Mediterranean route. Many emigrate due to rising unemployment, low wages, inadequate healthcare and education systems, and extreme poverty. The allure of an idealized Europe and a lack of awareness of the risks exacerbate the phenomenon. In recent years, reliance on human traffickers has increased, facilitated by the presence of armed groups demanding payments for crossing territories under their control. Among these groups, Boko Haram plays a crucial role, responsible for tens of thousands of deaths and the displacement of 2.3 million people. Dramatic events like the fire that killed 59 students in 2014 and the kidnapping of 276 schoolgirls the same year highlight the severity of the situation. However, Boko Haram is not the primary cause of migration to Europe, as many displaced people seek refuge in neighboring countries like Cameroon, Chad, or Niger. Regarding the motivations driving Nigerians to seek Europe, socio-economic factors remain the predominant drivers. European authorities have expressed concern about the increase in illegal immigration from Nigeria, particularly via the central Mediterranean route. Frontex and Europol have recorded an increase in the number of Nigerians arriving at European airports with false travel documents. In 2016, over 20,000 Nigerians were repatriated from Europe due to a lack of legal documents. Number 6. Pakistan. Migration from Pakistan to Europe began in the 50s to meet the demand for labor in the United Kingdom and other European countries. Initially, migration was legal, but irregular flows emerged in the early 90s. It is estimated that about 4 million Pakistanis reside outside Pakistan, half of whom are in Europe. The causes of this migration are manifold. Firstly, political and social instability, with unstable governments and internal tensions, hinders real development. Regions like Balochistan are scenes of clashes and repression, pushing thousands to flee in search of safety. Economically, migration becomes an escape route from chronic poverty and unemployment. In fact, remittances sent by Pakistani migrants to their families at home constitute a significant part of the entire Pakistani economy. However, these migrations come at a high cost, both for Pakistanis and Europeans. Smuggling networks exploit migrants' vulnerabilities, promising journeys to a Europe that appears like a mirage. The journey, however, is often marked by abuse, inhumane conditions, and deadly dangers. Greece is the main gateway to Europe. Many Pakistanis pass through it before seeking new destinations on the continent. Once they arrive, they often face a reality far different from their expectations, such as underpaid jobs, discrimination, and difficulties in regularizing their status. It's notable that 40% of Pakistanis have expressed a desire to leave the country. Between 2014 and 2024, at least 117,000 illegal crossings by Pakistanis into the European Union were reported. Number 5. Eritrea. Eritrea, often nicknamed the North Korea of Africa, is the scene of a severe political and humanitarian crisis that drives thousands of citizens to flee to Europe. At the heart of this exodus is indefinite national service, which forces citizens to work for the government with no time limit, depriving them of freedom and economic prospects. Those who try to avoid this imposition risk imprisonment, torture, and abuse. The situation worsened in 2001 when the president arrested 11 politicians who had called for reforms, suspended the implementation of the constitution, and halted any democratization process. Since then, the country has been under an authoritarian regime that represses dissent and limits religious and social freedoms, creating a climate of fear and oppression. Many Eritreans initially seek refuge in neighboring countries like Sudan and Ethiopia, but the living conditions in refugee camps are disastrous. Malnutrition, lack of healthcare, and work restrictions push migrants to continue their journey to Europe, seen as a land of freedom and opportunity. The journey is extremely dangerous, exploited by unscrupulous traffickers. In Sudan, the Ras Hidar tribe kidnaps Eritrean refugees from camps, selling them to Bedouins in Egypt, where they face abuse and torture. In Libya, traffickers and corrupt officials transport migrants through the Sahara Desert in inhumane conditions. These migrants are detained until ransom is paid, suffering violence if they cannot pay. Many exploit the suffering of Eritreans for personal gain, with the situations in Sudan and Libya being just two of many examples. According to Frontex data, at least 124,000 irregular crossings from Eritrea into the European Union have been recorded in the past 10 years, but these are likely underestimated figures. Number 4. Morocco. Irregular migration from Morocco to Europe is a dramatic phenomenon fueled by deep socio-economic and political causes. Despite rapid development, Morocco suffers from high social inequalities and poor quality of public education. Strict moral norms push many to seek a freer life in Europe, particularly in France and Spain, former colonizers with strong economic ties. In the 1980s, Morocco became a crossroads for migrants heading to Spain. The 1992 Spanish-Moroccan agreement regulated the expulsion of illegal migrants, but crossings continued. According to Frontex, there were at least 128,000 irregular crossings from Morocco to the European Union between 2014 and 2024, though this is likely an underestimate. Additionally, 350,000 migrants from various nations have used Moroccan routes. The main migration routes include the Western Mediterranean, leading migrants to Spain through the Strait of Gibraltar, and the West African route, with dangerous journeys to the Canary Islands. Ceuta and Melilla, the Spanish enclaves in Morocco, are often scenes of massive crossing attempts, with Moroccan authorities regularly blocking the borders. In 2023, Morocco prevented over 75,000 people from entering Europe illegally, a 6% increase from the previous year. However, the drama continues. Between 2018 and 2022, 244 boats disappeared along the route to the Canaries, and in 2021 nearly 4,000 people died or went missing during the journey. Migration from Morocco to Europe is a dangerous and often fatal journey, symbolizing the hopes and despair of thousands. Number 3. Iraq. Rising geopolitical tensions and severe human rights violations have driven many Iraqis to seek refuge in Europe. Fleeing decades of repression under Saddam Hussein, devastating wars, and the chaos following the 2003 US invasion, thousands of Iraqis have undertaken a perilous and costly journey to Europe, often paying around $10,000. The overthrow of Saddam Hussein did not bring the hope for stability and democracy but created a power vacuum that allowed various militant and sectarian groups to thrive, fueling a cycle of violence and instability. Added to this grim picture are Turkish raids in the Kurdish region and increased persecution of Christians since Saddam Hussein's regime fell. These and other reasons have driven at least 186,000 illegal crossings by Iraqis into the European Union in the past 10 years. Crossing the Greek-Turkish border or reaching the Greek islands by sea, migrants seek a new life in northern European countries. The UN Refugee Agency has urged European countries to take in more Iraqis. Among EU countries, Germany has been the most responsive. Germany and the UK host the largest Iraqi communities in Europe. The EU is trying to reach an informal agreement with Iraq to increase deportations, threatening visa sanctions for lack of cooperation. Despite efforts to contain the migratory flow, the situation remains critical, with thousands willing to risk everything for a better future. Number 2. Afghanistan. Migration from Afghanistan to Europe is a dramatic response to perpetual instability and lack of protection in neighboring countries like Iran. For over 40 years, Afghanistan has been ravaged by wars and conflicts, starting with the Soviet invasion in 1979, which triggered an endless cycle of violence. The rise of the Taliban in 2021 worsened the crisis, with widespread human rights violations and growing persecution of journalists, former government officials, soldiers, and religious and ethnic minorities. Afghan refugees in Iran live in extremely precarious conditions, deprived of basic rights and subjected to systematic discrimination. Many of them, trapped in limbo with no possibility of returning to Afghanistan or building a decent life in Iran, decide to undertake dangerous journeys to Europe, driven by desperation and the desire for safety and stability. However, integration in Europe is a daunting challenge. Economic and social difficulties, combined with criminalization, complicate the inclusion of Afghan refugees. According to Swedish police, 16.3% of foreign-born individuals suspected of crimes come from Afghanistan, a statistic that fuels further tensions. By the end of 2021, there were 2.7 million Afghan refugees worldwide, most of whom were hosted in Iran and Pakistan. Regarding the European Union, Frontex recorded at least 491,000 irregular crossings from Afghanistan to the EU over the past decade, though the actual numbers may be much higher. Afghan migration to Europe remains an urgent humanitarian crisis, with thousands fleeing despair in search of new hope. Before revealing the number one, we kindly ask you to support our project by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the bell icon to stay updated with our new videos. We are doing enormous work to conduct this research, and it's only possible thanks to your support. Thank you very much. Number 1, Syria. The year 2015 was pivotal for the migration crisis in Europe, with over 1 million people crossing the Mediterranean. Most were fleeing wars and instability in Afghanistan, Iraq, and especially Syria. Syria, devastated by a civil war that began in 2011, saw thousands undertaking perilous journeys through Turkey and Libya, often paying exorbitant sums to smugglers to cross the sea to Europe. 80% of sea arrivals landed in Greece, while only 3% crossed land borders from Turkey. Among the main destinations, Germany received over 500,000 asylum applications, followed by Sweden with 100,000. However, the journey to Europe cost the lives of more than 3,700 Syrian migrants, who mainly drowned. Conditions in European reception centers raised concerns. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, migrants faced squalid bathrooms, cold weather, and overcrowding in temporary centers, while in Bulgaria, border guards violently pushed migrants back, often robbing them and leaving them exposed to extreme conditions. From January 2014 to September 2024, 1,130,000 crossings of Syrians into the European Union were recorded. But in 2024, an event changed the course of things. In December 2024, rebels took control of the Syrian capital, Damascus, and President Assad fled to Russia. Fearing a surge in migration, several European countries closed their borders. Austria, Great Britain, Germany, Sweden, and Norway announced the suspension of asylum applications for Syrians following this event. At the same time, several European politicians celebrated Assad's downfall, particularly since he was a historic ally of Russia. We would really like to know the opinion of our community on this topic, as well as on the issue of migration flows in Europe. And if you want to know which European countries have the most illegal immigrants and refugees, you can watch the video linked at the top right. We assure you there will be surprises. That's all for this video. See you next time.